All right, what's up, guys? Mags here. We've got a pretty exciting one today. We're going to go over a little bit more in depth on how to use the footprint, and we're going to combine it with a profile. Today, we're using the volume profile, not the market profile. The ideas are the same for both, though. So, starting off with a really important topic of absorption. I'm going to give you guys a basic way of how to look at absorption, right? So, let's see. Um, Basically what you want to do, right, is you want to find a line of support or resistance. You want to see how price interacts there. So we're going to do yesterday's value area high, for example, and we'll do this with a couple of them. So I have it set up so that when I draw a line on this chart, it's automatically going to draw a line on this chart. And you can do that by clicking F5, going into chart settings, go to advanced settings 2, and then copy drawing charts by number in the bottom right, and you put the number of the chart. And this is an 8, and that one is a 6. It just the numbers are based off the order in which you created them. So we drew the line on the value area high, and we're going to come and see what happened. Okay, so what we're looking at right here is this, right? It's pushing up into it and it's getting rejected. What does rejection look like? Rejection looks like aggressive buying, aggressive buying, aggressive buying, aggressive buying, but unable to get through it. And what happens eventually? You see aggressive buying that's able to get through. Okay? So once you're able to get through that line, and now we're above it, now we're going to be looking at the opposite side, right? Instead of looking at the aggressive buyers now, you still want to look at them, but now you really want to look at the aggressive sellers. You want to see people getting aggressive into the low, right? So they're going to be selling aggressively back into this line, and you want to see them unable to break it. So you see aggressive selling. There's a big boy aggressive seller. This is exactly what you want to see. You want to see a disproportionate sell at the low, and it moves up. So we don't really know if it moved down first or whatnot, but regardless, right, you see them aggressively selling into the low and it moves up. You see them aggressively selling into the low and it moves up. Pretty basic idea. We'll look at some other examples. We'll use the current high right now. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll mark out the value area high, and let's see what happens on this value area high. I would recommend probably that you move to different time frames depending on what's going on with volatility, right? The higher the volatility, the lower the time frame should be, in my opinion, so that you can see what's going on. The less the volatility, the less you need to see the individual moves. So what happens, right? You see clear resistance. We see aggressive buying, aggressive selling, aggressive buying, aggressive selling. There wasn't as much effort into the high here. You could tell, right, when you see the aggression and then much smaller numbers at the top, right? The limits just absorbed it, right? What happens again? We buy it aggressively again. And what happens following that? This is what absorption looks like, guys, right? That you have a high, you have aggression into it, and what happens? We're rejected. And the purpose of this, right, this isn't a real rejection, right? I'm still bullish. I think that this is going to keep going up. But what this was, right, is it was sellers defending it so that we could run over the licks more or less, right? What happened on this move down? The algos picked up. They started smashing the bid. They're selling into the bid aggressively. What happens? The bids pull, price nukes, 100x's and 50x's get liquidated. We go into an area of demand. We bounce. This is what happened. The same thing, and now look, wait, we're aggressively buying over the resistance again. We're currently under it, but I could see that we're ticking up as we're watching it. I'm watching the tape speed. There's some good speed right now. They're trying to buy through this. Next logical area of trouble is going to be, in the 11.7s. We're not going to get into high time frame levels or anything. Okay, let's cherry pick one more example. Okay, let's see what it looks like on 8-3 on this value area high. We're conveniently using value area highs on all of them. It has no relevance, right? You could pick any level and do this with it. It's just these are just easy ones for me to pick. So we got to go to 8-3 and we want to look at 11,400. So we're going to scroll all the way over to 8-3. Hopefully I have enough data in here for 8-3. We do, and then we're going to go to 1100-ish. No, we're going to go earlier than that. We're going to go to like 5. Okay, there we go. Oh, isn't that just lovely? My time frames on these two charts are wrong. This is not the chart that I trade with. This is the chart I made for you guys. Okay, still perfect example. It's gonna work just fine for us. So this one you will notice is a wick, right? So this one's gonna be a pretty good example, I think. Oh wow, it's perfect. Okay, so we're aggressively buying into the high, right, where we have resistance. We aggressively buy through the resistance, and the sellers step in hard, right? I don't really know which order the buys and sells were going through, but it's safe to assume that that the buyers stepped in first and the sellers stepped in afterwards. And it's all about the relationship of where are these buyers and sellers transacting, right? Is the buyer transacting at the high? That's not a good thing if you're a buyer, right? But if the buyers are at the low of the candle, that is a good thing, right? So it's all about context, right? You're gonna hate listening to people like me because all we're ever gonna say is context, but this is the answer always, is interpreting what you're seeing. So we see a resistance, we see aggressive buying, we see aggressive selling, we see them hit it again. What do you not want to see if you're a seller? You do not want to see aggressive selling into the low of the candle, right? You want to see aggressive selling into the high. This is not good for them. And this is why ultimately, their aggression worked out for them and they were able to force the price down a few hundred points. But in the long run, right, this kind of aggressive selling, is not really good, right? So the sellers got lucky that they were able to take control of the book, and this isn't what I mean, right? Later on they actually moved it down, right, to where they actually got a good 250 point rotation out of it. However, for the purpose of this video, though, you do not want to see selling like this into the low. Okay, and then the next thing is, right, that just like with the previous example, what is happening here, right? We get into the resistance, we're running licks. That's what we do. We run licks. We ran licks and we moved back up. It's a perfect example, right? Because look at what happens at the resistance. Aggressive buying, aggressive selling, aggressive buying, aggressive selling. Who was more aggressive? The buyers. You can see that 1.3 mil sells to 2.74 buys. Same thing over here. This one is the sellers were actually greater on this case, but still it was a disproportionate. It's an imbalance in buying at the exact value area high, right? We're literally right on the line, and you could see that. I'm just going to point this out that. Um, oh yeah, we're on this level. Never mind. Look at this though. Just point this out. I drew this value area high earlier. It's already shifted up because we're buying into it. These things constantly adapt is why I'm pointing that out. So you don't want to draw the line and forget about it. You want to draw the line and you want to make sure that the line doesn't move on you. So just to finish this up real quick, you see aggression into the highs. They're unable to break. They give another attempt. Here's a little spice for you, right? When you identify this, um, if you want to short this, you're really not going to have that much opportunity to get fills on here, right? It's a hugely common mistake to market sell, right? So many people market because it's just so much easier. I can promise you that you're shooting yourself in the foot when you're primarily marketing. People don't realize how much money they're giving up because they don't really journal and properly log everything. But I can tell you this that it's a substantial difference, especially if you're a scalper, right? If you're a high frequency trader, you need to limit. So what I'm getting at with that is that the best day trade for you wasn't to sell into this. It was actually to sell into this, right? So you see this sell off and you see the absorption and you go, okay, sellers absorb the buyers. I feel good about fading this. Where do you sell? You don't sell here, you sell here. You limit here and you wait for price to come into you and fill you and you be patient because being patient is always better than being the aggressor. That's I'm using absolutes by saying always, but it's seriously almost always better to be the passive player in these type of scalping. Not just because of the fees, but because of your average entry and stuff too. You know, you're likely. I mean, I get much better fills when I use limits than when I'm the aggressor. So what happens, right? We hit the high, we reject, we move down. They give it another go. This looks like an obvious liquidation stop run, right? You know, we don't have very much selling at all, just constant buying, constant buying. We don't even get close to the high, you know, and what happens from there, it just trickles down. This was a pretty easy short. I took it on ETH though. I didn't take it on Bitcoin. Been trading ETH a lot lately. So that pretty much does it for the idea of absorption. These two tools together are a pretty deadly combination. You just need to sit down and calmly think, what am I seeing? What are the players doing? Play a little bit of four-dimensional chess. Last thing I want to do though is make a point about how lately, order flow and profile and all these cool buzzwords have been very popular on Twitter, and I want to make I'm not gonna LARP and tell you guys that this is gonna be the answer for you, that this is gonna help you. For most people, this is not going to be useful because it's going to be too complicated, and building systems out around these tools is very difficult. I don't mean that what I just showed you guys of, oh, I identified absorption, so I'm gonna fade. That is not a good enough system. Just because you see absorption doesn't mean you can fade. You need a complicated mechanical system. This is just my opinion, but I don't care what anyone else says in our space about how discretionary traders can make money and stuff. Most discretionary traders don't have real systems, in my opinion, where if A happens, I do B. If B happens, I do C. That is how we have to think in order to survive in these markets. And I'm not saying that I'm right, but it's definitely my opinion that you will not survive if you don't have a system like that. So I just wanted to end it by doing the opposite of blowing smoke up everyone's asses and telling them if they learn these things that I understand that it's going to help them because it may or may not, right? For me, I was lucky enough to learn these things. I got a little couple of breadcrumbs here and there from some friends and I pieced everything together and I made my own system. But just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. To be frank, it probably won't because building a system out with this footprint tool is difficult. Building systems out with the profile isn't too bad. You guys, everyone can handle this part of it. But to actually have a rule-based system around the footprint, I don't know, it's rough. So I'm not trying to be negative, but I also want everyone to have a realistic perspective of what's going on here. So gonna go ahead and end it there. Let me know if anyone has any questions. Please like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.